Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Every Day is a Train Wreck. And I am your conductress, I should say sorceress, based on a podcast I just taped about all kinds of things astrology. And I've got a fabulous guest who I think is going to knock your socks off, Matt Cook. And Matt, I met, but then little did I know how many layers there were to Matt's story. But Matt not only runs his own successful podcast, but I know him through Mission Matters, that's the group that brought me into podcasting. And then I find a little secret that he actually got them into podcasting. But I think what you're going to also love is, well, first of all, he's great to listen to, easy on the eyes. So you'll have to check him out on Instagram, et cetera, and on the YouTube stuff, just saying. And the other thing is he has got so much of a background in social media, et cetera. And I think that's what's going to, well, who knows what's going to pop. We'll see what happens. So
You never
Matt,
know.
thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marley. I appreciate you having me on. I feel like I'm rounding out the Mission Matters squad between Adam and Chirag and myself. You know, we had to kind of bring the trifecta to Every Day is a Train Wreck. So I'm excited to dive into it all. This is a different type of show than what I normally get to do. So I'm
it's
looking
a
forward
different
to
type of show than what everybody gets to do. Can you imagine freaking poor Adam? So Adam and Chirag are kind of like the co-founders. And Matt, I don't know how I mean, for all I know, you might be a co-founder too, but you certainly do a ton of the work. But Chirag, I feel like, Chirag is going to kind of go with the flow. And then, I've had poor Adam who's Mr. like always in his red tie, et cetera. And I think I was trying to out him as having, he was telling me he's dating somebody. And I was like, oh, is it so-and-so? And he's like, she's married. I'm like, well, it doesn't mean you can't be dating her. I mean, so yeah. For them. So now we've got the trifecta, but I promise I won't try to out anything or create anything salacious, but I have a feeling we will anyway.
it could happen.
Okay. So, all right, Matt. So tell us, first of all, what's the name of your podcast and how long have you had it?
Yeah, so I started Pull Hook Golf, the podcast, going back over 3 years ago now, to where, man, it was something to where when I started the podcast network, which you were a part of originally,
Right.
and you've migrated now to our agency side of our business with your podcast. But the network, I was like, I've started training hosts and everything, and, all the information that I had. And I'm like, you know what? I should probably start my own podcast, because if I'm going to be training and teaching, and not only that, but understanding what goes on with a podcast host, I should probably be one myself. And I'm like,
Right.
what type of podcast should I do? And of course, the first thing was, should it be business related? Something around like Mission Matters and, what Adam's doing. And I'm like, hell no. Like,
Good for you. Thank goodness.
yeah, I had to get outside of that world and be like, okay, I need to do this myself. And I even went to the point to where, like, I have a team of editors and
Yeah.
from the audio video side to, account managers. And it's like, no, I got to do this all myself. I want to know every little detail that there is, even from an editing perspective.
Yeah.
So I did everything. I did everything myself. And, that led into and then also I'm like, not your typical golfer. So I very much so came from a complete sports background. Very rare how I got into the game of golf. And sure enough, I'm like, this needs to be unfiltered. Like, I want to talk like the guys do in the locker room, like when we're out on the golf course. So that's what we brought to the table, is a fully unfiltered golf podcast.
And how long is your podcast for those who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, so it's normally about between an hour to an hour and a half. Sometimes we get a little bit long in the tooth, but overall, we keep it interesting. We keep it moving from kind of topic to topic. We talk anywhere from pro golf. We have a comedian golf influencer that's on the show as well.
Yeah.
And he always makes me laugh while we're on there. So it's a great time.
I want to ask you about that, about the length, because so many podcasts, and we can talk about stuff with social media. It's we have the attention span of a goldfish, and now I understand. It's not even that of a goldfish. I don't know what would be less than a goldfish, but maybe a tadpole. I don't know, but yeah, that's a long podcast. So how did you settle on, in a world where everything is shorter, faster? Give me the bullet points. Let's do the drive by. How did you settle on the, hour to hour and a half format?
I feel like I didn't settle on it. It was more so it found me to where, trying to record an episode, I
Yep.
realized that there was no way we were going to get in under an hour. And
Interesting.
so originally I was like, I started freaking out in the beginning because originally I had a gentleman who his name is Mikey Perez. God rest his soul. He ended up passing away a couple years ago, but he did the first 6 episodes with me.
Oh,
And
wow.
that guy could talk. And so
Oh, boy.
we just were like, there's no way we can end up doing this in like 30 minutes. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just see how people react to it. If people like it, if they want to listen to it. And we
Right.
noticed, yeah, people loved it. And nobody was complaining about the length of the show or anything like that. So I let it run. I mean, and that's one of the cool things that I've learned through that experience is like, if you were just to go off of what people recommend, right? The
Right.
industry standard should be a 30-minute podcast show,
Right.
between 20 to 30 minutes. And then
Yeah.
it just it goes to show you that it's not about length, it's about the quality of the show. And this is
Right.
the one thing that I always share to podcasters is that if the content's interesting, keep it going.
Yes.
If it starts to die down a little bit to where as the host, you kind of get a feel for whether or not shows are going to be interesting or not,
Sure.
then from there you can be like, okay, let's tailor this down and let's end this episode. But I always say, kind of get a natural rhythm for it. And then from there, if it's interesting, it's interesting.
You touched on a bunch of interesting points. I think one of them being, there's kind of the what it should be, right? And then what it evolves to be. And I remember when I was doing my onboarding and all this stuff for podcasting, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it quote should be X amount of time. And I obviously I like to talk, but I just find myself as the host, I'm so interested, or I wouldn't have the people on in the first place, right? Like
Sure.
for me to have them on, they have to be very interesting because I have no attention span to start with. So, but then I'm so surprised with myself because I want to just keep asking them all these questions, and I keep looking at the clock, going, Marley, you got to like wrap it up, and it always seems to be like it's kind of more often than not heading right around the hour time. And so how much of that do you think is the host's like curiosity or like the host bringing out different things or what do you think it is? Or
I think you're spot on. I think it's the host. I think the host dictates how, because believe it or not, the audience is bought into you, right? So
mhm,
you are the standard. You're the consistency
right,
behind the show that they're going to keep coming back
right.
time and time again. And that's where, if you're finding it interesting, most likely they're finding it interesting. So
Yeah.
that's why I always say go off of your feel. Don't
Yeah.
worry about time when it comes to that. And if it naturally kind of finishes around that hour mark, that's what you should end up going with.
Yeah. Now, okay, so everything is, we play ping pong here where we're just all over the map. Before I get into one of my deep dive questions, I have a random one. Do you listen to your own podcasts?
Oh, I couldn't for a year and a half. I hated the sound of my voice. Everybody's like, wow, you have such a podcast voice. And I'm like, oh, I can't stand it. It's horrible. I
Okay,
don't want
that's
to
why I'm
listen to it.
asking you. That's awesome because I was thinking, I was like, God, you have like such the Suave Bola podcast voice. Like we joke around here sometimes that I speak more Spanish than English because, of our team. But they say that I get this certain like intonation when I'm speaking Spanish. Like if I'm describing something, they're like when you're speaking English, you're talking like blah 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 blah, noisy and erratic maybe. But when I'm speaking Spanish, I was like, oh, you mean when I have my like used car salesman voice where I'm like, oh, like it's a telenovela, la 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 la. It's but and both voices of my own drive me crazy. But that's why I wanted to ask because I was like, you have a really great voice. And I was like, I wonder if Matt's voice bugs him. Because
Oh, it
maybe that's
does.
just a thing, right? Like genetically we're bred to hate our own voices or something.
I think so.
Maybe so we
I,
listen to other people. I
I
don't
think
know.
it's natural to not want to have to listen to yourself
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
hear a different voice in our head than what
Yeah.
actually comes out. I feel
I
like.
certainly hope so. God bless you. That is the one thing I hope you are right on because otherwise this podcast is doomed to fail. Um, let's jump into your backstory. So you are with Mission Matters now doing, well, you have your podcast, you do stuff with them. I don't know how else to say it other than stuff, but you had an agency. Do you still have an agency? Do you still consult on your own? How does that work?
No, so I do some consulting. What's funny enough, so I've had quite the eclectic background when it comes to golf technology, to sales, to marketing, to, running my own social media marketing business. But um, that whole side of things is kind of, no longer in effect where I do everything I do social media wise within Mission Matters,
Uh-huh.
but I run the entire podcast agency and division for Mission Matters. So literally everything podcast related falls under me, which oftentimes with how many podcasts we have,
Yeah.
the social media side all falls under me as well, which that's always a fun thing to do. But the consulting side is funny because every once in a while, golf technology, and that's become bigger and bigger over the
Oh,
years.
yeah.
I get gigs for consulting on that side of things. So that's
Really?
obviously outside of Mission Matters.
Sure.
But yeah, no, everything else media wise is all within what I do within the agency. And,
Yeah.
trying to balance is probably the thing that I do the most because I wear many hats
Yeah.
within Mission Matters, as you know.
Yes.
And certainly the podcast side, I try to stay as focused on that lane as humanly possible. And I'm
Yeah.
constantly telling Chirag no on so many things, but
Yeah.
as you
But
know, but
yes, I do.
that being said, my skill set, I really find it in the fact that I'm just consistent. And I say
Yes.
that with podcasts too, because like even with my podcast, it took a while. It took over a year and a half for it to really start to grow. And that is one thing that I always related to is that the success has come from consistency. We've never missed a week within that 3+ year process of the show.
Yeah.
And with that same thing goes within the agency. It's like you got to be there, you got to
Yeah.
execute, and you got to be consistent. Those are the key factors behind it all. But yeah, it's the social media world, that's always an interesting one because everybody kind of is like, "Oh, we need social media." Well,
Right.
social media, there's a lot of avenues you can go down with it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, and we're going to go down a bunch of them. Now, one question I have for you is you mentioned that, took you about a year and a half. And, we've had many conversations that are not part of this podcast, shocker. And I feel like you are consistent and Mission Matters is consistent with the message that just show up consistently, do good interviews and don't so much worry about the numbers initially, etc. Which for the numbers girl here who's all about key performance indicators, blah, blah, blah.
That was like
Is
scratching the chalkboard
I
for
mean,
you.
I was like, what do you mean? Like, and I kind of get why you're saying it because it no matter what, like when you're starting out, the numbers I don't think for anybody are ever what you want them to be. But do you think it's pretty typical that it takes like a year and a half? I'm not saying that there aren't outliers, but
It takes longer. So
really,
I'll tell you right now, we have one show in particular that it
Mhm.
took them 2.5 years. And now they're starting to hit that stride where all of a sudden it's like, whoa, where do all these numbers start
wow,
coming from? Where even it surprises me still. Like I've seen it with my own podcast.
right,
I've seen it with hundreds of podcasts that
yeah,
we've produced and built and so forth. And it's like, man, it's so different between every single show.
uh-huh,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was willing to do a show without seeing much success for 4 or 5 years,
yeah,
probably end up seeing that eventually hit its stride too.
really,
I don't know if it's something it is specific for me in regards to podcasts. Like I've seen other things grow super fast, like social media because of the algorithms and so forth. But I
sure,
don't think that those are as built out with podcasts. And of course,
mm,
as you talked about early on, the attention span is like a goldfish
yeah,
nowadays to
yeah.
where getting somebody to sit down and listen to your show for 30, 40,
Oh
50,
God, yeah, I'm
60 minutes.
amazed every
Yeah.
time.
So that's where it's like, wow. But that's that slow drip that happens because the word of mouth starts going
Yes,
up and it's like, hey, what kind of shows are you into? Like it's casual conversations. And
yes,
all of a sudden somebody drops in, oh, I love Every Day is a Train Wreck
yeah,
podcast. And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
what's that?
yeah,
And then they get into it. And that's where I think you really start to see that growth start to come in because it's consistent. The one thing that I do notice is when all of a sudden a podcast goes on a hiatus, they lose a lot of their audience
oh
and
yeah,
it kills that momentum
yeah.
behind it as that growth continually happens.
Well, it's yeah, because people want to see. It's kind of like when I watch a reality show, and if it was just, I just binge watched it and it just came out, I'm still Googling, like, where are they now? Right. Because you just want to sort of keep up with the journey. And it's interesting. You said a couple things that I want to touch on. One is you mentioned the algorithms and social media. And to me, the podcasting is still a little bit more the wild, wild west. I mean, we know
Mhm.
that podcasts have been around for, it seems like forever, but it's still a relatively new medium. So do you think that's kind of part of why it takes a while, is because nobody's really got their arms around how to promote it, or what are your thoughts?
My thoughts there are it's tough to push people to listen to a podcast from like social media, for instance. Like
Mhm.
that's one of the key arms of promotion
Yeah.
for podcasts is especially from an organic standpoint, you
Mhm.
got to do it because you're going to have these drips and clips and so forth that
Mhm.
eventually people are going to get interested. But yeah, I think we're very much so still in the wild, wild west to where like Apple Podcasts, for instance, not to knock on them because they're obviously a behemoth when it
Sure.
comes to podcasts, it's them and
Sure.
Spotify. And
Right.
so those two together, I just haven't seen a ton with the algorithms to allow smaller podcasts to really grow
Right.
and get that reach, right?
Right.
So most podcasts, there's stats out there. Most podcasts fail within the first 6 months. So I
And when
think
you say
it's
fail, what do you mean?
they
Because
stop
there's a
doing
lot of
episodes.
okay, so pause. But that's on them. I mean,
Correct.
that's the now that could also be, think it's like a bright shiny object. People like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast, and then they don't have the staying power to kind of keep it up 6 months later. But it would be kind of interesting. I'm sort of thinking out loud whether it would be if they just stuck it out, like how many of them would actually become successful, and if the algorithms changed, would it help to make them successful early enough so that they wouldn't give up? Because still 6 months is doing something for 6 months, especially if you're doing a podcast a week, is no fooling around. I mean, it's
Oh,
definitely
agreed.
it's a commitment. It isn't like we just sit here and I have an hour-long podcast, so we just plop in the chair and that's it. I mean, you're researching people to have. There's a billion things that go on to just delivering the content. And who do you think is going to be, like with AI, it was like you only had one AI app, and now it's all of a sudden it feels like it's just rolling and rolling and rolling, and everybody's got their version of their own AI. Do you think that somebody's going to jump in and become the one person in podcasting that's going to kind of unify all these outliers, even though Apple and Spotify, as you said, are big ones? Or what do you
Well,
think?
I think it's gonna be Spotify
Mhm.
because I'm gonna tell you right now,
Yeah.
the other night, all of a sudden, because I'm mainly an Apple guy, so
Yeah.
do Apple Music, I do
Yeah.
Apple Podcasts, and then my wife is on the Spotify side. So
Okay.
she ends up listening to Spotify. She's got her premium account, and she always is like, Spotify's so much better. Well, sure enough, the other night, she's like, what is this? And we're driving home, and it was Saturday night, literally this past Saturday night,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, it's this AI DJ, and the AI DJ comes on and goes, "Hey, listen, I know what you've been listening to. Let me take over, and I'm going to get you all the music that you wanna listen to, and then I'm gonna start introducing new music to you." And sure enough,
No
we went
way.
nuts. It was absolutely flawless, and we're like, "Holy shit, this is where it's heading." And so if they've got that on the
What?
music side, you better believe it's gonna
Oh
soon
gosh.
drip into the podcast side.
You're the first one and I read like day and night, I feel like. And I want to say, did I clip an article about an AI DJ? Maybe, but not with how it would relate to Spotify as far as that, or any of that is magic. Wow. That's a game changer. And that is something I'm sure they're going to see. I'm sure you weren't the only one that it hit spot on. And it'd be interesting if people have had that happen. If they made a comment in the comments about it, would be kind of fun. But oh my gosh, that's going to be a game changer, right?
I think
Because
so.
ooh, I mean, can you imagine? Oh wow, my brain goes in so many places. I mean, I love AI, and I think and there are very many scary things about it, but that is going to be crazy. Yeah, could you imagine? What if it? starts curating your whole life, right? Where it's like, oh, I noticed you listen to X amount, you listen to music in the morning when you're getting ready, and you listen to podcasts at night, and you do the apps at night, so you go to sleep, and wow, if it really starts pulling all those different components and kind of curating your best life.
I'm all for AI. I
Is it?
mean, I absolutely love it. It helps out with so much. Like I
Oh my
embrace
gosh.
it. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people are scared of it, but
Right.
I'm one that I absolutely embrace it and seeing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, you don't have to be this big time celebrity. You
Right.
don't have to be this
No.
massive name in order to, get promoted onto the
Right.
because like if you look at Apple Podcasts,
Yeah.
you have to fill out a form, but it's all celebrities and people that are well known
Sure.
that are common names that they're putting out there
Yeah.
because that's natural. That's a natural
Yeah.
human being
It's
instinct.
clickbait. Yeah.
However, if AI starts to realize, oh my gosh, Every Day's a Train Wreck is the
Mhm.
podcast for you and it
Right.
recommends it, I
Totally
think
different.
that's going to be the game changer that a lot of podcasts that, don't have a celebrity name behind it all of
Yeah.
a sudden are going to blow up.
That's a great point. It's a little bit like what Etsy did,
Mhm.
right? For small artists and stuff.
Yeah.
So before you had to be a name, or now you can be the little tiny place in random country nobody's heard of. And all of a sudden you can be the fashion designer, et cetera, and people will find you because you get elevated based on, yeah, they've just changed the platform. It's a little bit also too like what TikTok did, right? Like with Instagram, it had to be very visual and it had to be this and that. And then all of a sudden kind of TikTok came in and it was not the most curated videos and super, yeah. I was a relatively early adopter of AI and use it. It's probably one of my biggest secret weapons these days.
Mhm.
And I'm very curious your opinion about why people are afraid of it. Now, I am not saying you shouldn't be afraid of it to a certain extent, right? I think people who know a lot about it with good reason are like it could go really wrong. But do you think that's why most people are afraid about it? Because the ones I talk to when they're afraid, I find they don't know that much about it.
That's the thing. It's media driven, right?
Yeah.
Just like a lot of things, it's still legacy media that's driving a lot of emotions and, thought
Right.
processes. And I think that's one of the challenges is that, you have the legacy media being like, be afraid of it so that you don't use it.
Right.
And that's what I've at least taken away from it because I've
Right.
seen that the news articles and so forth. And, people bringing up the paperclip theory that if you
Right.
train it to, have to create a paperclip that
Right.
eventually it's going to destroy humanity because it
Right.
needs resources in order to build these paperclips. And
Right.
it's like, I don't buy into that. And I think regulation is good to a degree when it
Yeah.
comes to it so it doesn't get out of control.
Right. Right.
But sooner rather than later, we're probably going to be in a situation where, you know, everybody's working with it and it's
Yeah.
enhancing our lives. And that's where I see it going.
Right. Yeah, I agree because it is to me and I have a bad habit of doing this, but when somebody makes a comment like that and if I'm up for it, I, poke the bear and I'm kind of like, well, what exactly is it about it that you're afraid, and I'll keep pushing, keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and then I find out at the root, they generally, not only have they never used it, I mean, at all, they really have no idea like what the benefits are and that and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna replace all the lower level jobs." And my thing is, I would like if I were a teacher, I would be showing the students how to use it as opposed to because we know students are using it to game the system. So fine,
Yeah.
I'd have the teachers become the best AI people there are and show the students how it can save them time and do deeper papers and all this other amazing research. But it really can help in so many ways. Just even in your regular life. Before we kind of jump to some social media stuff, give us like one random way you use AI.
Oh man, I can give you a million ways I use AI. I mean, shoot.
Give
I
us a
use
few.
I, I use it to bounce ideas off of. I use it for, coming up with different concepts and ideas. And then I tailor. I mean, I have full conversations with AI to the degree to where it's like it's almost like a personal journal with
It's
like some of the
hilarious that I
threads
am.
that I have. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, and it's funny because you hear Sam Altman talk about ChatGPT And he talks about the different generations
Yep.
and how it's used differently amongst them. And then I look at it as a 41-year-old man, and I'm like, oh, I use it for everything. The only thing I
Right.
don't really use it for is coding, because I've never been able to code. And I guess
Yeah.
if I wanted to get into that world, I could because of AI. I wouldn't
Right.
need to learn how to code certain things. But
Right.
I mean, shoot, I use it on a daily basis, Marley. Like, it's become such a tool. Like the other day, one of our employees had their Mini Cooper car key, and they're like, it said that the battery is going low. And I'm like, let me ask ChatGPT how to change out this battery. You got full instructions as to how to do it. Like, I turned on the camera feature, showed it the key. We got to the point where, like, okay, this is the battery that you need. That's how you go ahead and replace it. So, I mean, I use it for literally almost everything I do, because and also another, well, here's a little bit of a hack. And I
Okay.
have no relationship to this company other than the fact that I pay them a lot of money.
But you
Is
should. Okay, keep
yeah,
going.
I mean, so Superhuman email. They, like, early on I used them at Mission Matters because I had so many different emails coming
Wait,
in from
that's the
so many
name of it?
different.
It's called
It's called
Superhuman email?
Superhuman. And so they added AI. So the first time I'm like, you know what? I'm it's not worth the money. And then all of a sudden I revisited it probably about 5 or 6 months ago,
Okay.
because all of a sudden I had so much stuff coming at me. We'd had one of our my right-hand guy, so to speak,
Yeah.
to where he ended up leaving the company and I had to take over everything all over again. And sure enough, I'm like, I can't keep up. Like,
Yeah.
I'm missing so many emails. I think I had 1,500 unread emails at
Oh,
one point.
yeah.
So sure enough, with Superhuman, they have an AI feature. So you can literally, and it learns how you speak. So it's not like it's curating this
Yeah.
AI email that you can tell it's AI.
Yeah.
No, it's curating your voice. And then I'm checking it, making sure that everything fits. But it's also reading the emails of the whole thread to
Wow.
make sure that the context is correct. So for somebody like myself who used to never be able to keep up with emails, now
Right.
I'm able to zero out my inbox through a
Wow.
week. And so that's been an absolute game changer for me.
And let me ask you, when you say it costs a lot, how much about
I
to
think it's
spend
like
a month?
$40 a month. Like, it's
Oh
not
my God.
cheap.
That's hilarious. I mean, I'm thinking right now, we use Mixmax. I'm obsessed with Mixmax because, we can check who opened it when.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can send all these templates and all this other stuff. I'm trying to think of what my Mixmax bill for the company is a month. But I know you're talking about just your own, but I'm going to check that out. That might be a
Oh, I
really
got
super game.
Chirag and Adam on it as well.
Really? So
Oh,
now
yeah.
I know. Okay, so I can be like, Shrug, you have absolutely no excuse. Or, yeah, what's Adam's excuse then for not responding to emails? Now that you mention it,
He's become like Carmen Sandiego. I swear to God. Like, literally, it's like, where in the world is Adam Torres today? Because
right?
he's been going from conference to conference to conference.
Yeah, but
to
now that I know that he's
conference.
got superhuman email, I'm going to be like, dude, I understand you ain't got no excuses. Okay,
I
yeah.
don't think he actually looks at it. That's the
Oh,
problem.
that's okay. So superhuman can only help if you actually listen to
Yeah, if you actually spend some time and go in.
your fingers still have to do the typing, or your voice still
Exactly.
has to say send. Okay, I
Yeah,
love
we're
it.
not to full automation mode yet.
Yeah, well, at least with Adam. Okay, that's awesome. Well, tell us. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit to social media,
Sure.
and I always like to kind of take the temperature on what's going on these days. Everybody is involved in social media to some extent, whether they realize it or not. It seems.
Yeah.
And where do you think it's headed? Like, did back in the day, MySpace died. Is there a platform right now that you think is like, oh, that's on its last legs? They're going to
Facebook.
be out.
Facebook's a legacy social media platform.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this has actually been discussed by Zuckerberg, to where like emails have leaked about how they thought about just resetting everybody and starting from 0 friends
Mhm.
and having no reach whatsoever, and literally starting from 0.
And
And
why
that
would
was
they
one
do
of the
that?
conversations, so that the algorithm can relearn everything, because the
Interesting.
algorithm has become a bit outdated. It became to where it's like friends and family, like, keep
Mhm.
in touch with each other. I feel
Right.
like that's kind of the main avenue. And
Yeah.
then some business side, like, use it for private Facebook groups and things
Sure.
along those lines. But even those, I feel like, have died out in a lot of ways,
Right.
where now you've got, when they bought Instagram kind of became a bit of the focus because it was so popular.
Right.
And now that's the platform that they're constantly trying to keep at top of mind for people because their business is keeping your attention span as long as possible,
Right.
keeping you on their app. And so TikTok came in, obviously put a huge dent into
Yeah.
Instagram.
Woo-hoo.
They quickly, all of a sudden,
Right.
fired back with reels. And
Mhm.
then YouTube was like, oh, shoot, we need to create short clips
Mhm.
and create YouTube shorts. And so
Right.
there's this battle for the attention span. And those are the big three, in my opinion, right now,
Yeah.
between, YouTube, and YouTube's made a resurgence. I
Yeah,
mean,
YouTube
shoot.
has made well, I'll tell you, for a while there, I thought, okay, YouTube. I mean, what was it when we have Vine or something? Everybody's like, oh,
Yeah,
YouTube's gonna go. And how long ago do you think YouTube made that resurgence?
I would probably say probably 5 years ago. I mean, 3 is when I really noticed it, right?
Mhm.
I would probably say 5 years ago, they revamped everything,
Yeah.
and I mean, shoot, we might be talking about 10 years ago that they revamped everything.
Right.
5 years ago, all of a sudden, things started clicking. 3 years ago, we really started to see it across the board, and now it's to the point to where YouTube is a powerhouse, and they're talking about
Ooh,
YouTube
yeah.
taking over for, you know, networks and cable and how the Generation Z and beyond are
Yeah.
really just going to YouTube, no longer watching regular TV programs or the legacy media. So this is going to be interesting as it moves forward. And I mean, shoot, even my dad, I've noticed, is watching YouTube more than ever. He's
Isn't that
absolutely obsessed with it.
crazy?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting to me that the younger generation has jumped on the YouTube thing because especially with TikTok and everything being like ding, 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 fast, 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 fast. YouTube can be long, longer form. I mean, obviously they have shorts and they have those for a reason, but YouTube to me is almost like a place. I mean, these days, YouTube to me is almost like a Google where you go in to like do more research. You know what I mean? Like when I go to YouTube, yes, sometimes I'm just, fooling around and watching some stuff, but I feel like I will spend time on YouTube because people who really know what they're talking about are creating videos and I can't tell you how many times I've looked on like when I've was putting wool in the washing machine that I wasn't supposed to put in to clean for my project and gunk the whole thing gunked with clay and I was like, oh, I'll just check YouTube. And YouTube was very helpful in at least getting it back. People who really knew their stuff, walking you through step by step how to do something specific. So it kind of surprises me that are the younger generation, are they using it? Are they getting in depth or are they just using watching the shorts and stuff?
I think it's both. I mean, I'm not 100% certain on
Yeah.
that part of
Yeah.
it for the
Yeah.
younger generation. Just
Yeah.
overall, I know, long form content is still the king on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah. And yeah, that's very interesting. I'm curious, why wouldn't Mark Zuckerberg sell instead of resetting it all? Why wouldn't he sell it all? Why wouldn't he just sell it? Somebody who
Because
says, hey, listen, we want to revamp the friends and family thing.
it's still like a primary, like you could see it where you can log into other platforms now via Facebook,
Yeah.
right? Use
Yeah.
your credentials.
Right.
They
Right.
have so much information on people
Yeah.
through Facebook that it's too valuable. I don't think you're going to find a company
Yeah.
that is going to come into that. And then they use it for other things like
Right.
the VR side with
Yeah.
Oculus. And
Right.
that is still a big passion project for them over there that they eventually want to kick off. Like the VR has been one of those things that
I
for
know.
some reason has not taken off.
And I don't get. When VR came out, I thought, move over. This is going to go like wildfire. And it hasn't.
It's the hardware. So I did VR for a little bit when I was in
Okay.
sports technology.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it is mainly hardware based because you have to wear big goggles on your
Right.
head, right?
Right.
Now we're starting to get into AR where you've got the meta glasses and so
Yeah.
forth, and you can record content with these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And so it's getting there, but it's not there yet. Like once you don't have to wear something like
Yeah.
a big headset and
Yeah.
you can wear a pair of glasses, for instance, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you can change your entire, like what you see around you. Once it gets to that point, I think, yeah, we will eventually see it in a VR resurgence that will come. But yeah, it just never really took off. It is one of those just weird scenarios that everybody expected it. Like a lot of VCs were all about it.
Right.
And then even when I was in doing a lot of it for actually it was on the Major League Baseball side away
Yeah.
from golf, but we wanted to bring it over to golf. And sure enough, when I was doing that, it's like no VCs were interested in VR. Like VR had died out. They were just like, no, we don't trust it. We don't want to be investing tons of money
Well,
into
yeah, because
VR.
it's technology, so they would have to invest, and
Yep.
VCs are notoriously they want return,
They
and
want
they
the
want something
unicorns,
quickly.
Marley.
Yeah, unicorns, exactly. And they want it fast, and they'll put the money in, but they better get a ton of money out with a fairly predictable level of amazing return. Yeah, that is going to be very interesting. So who knows? We might get off this podcast, and then by Christmas, VR is going to be the whole deal. Like marrying the conversations of social media and podcasts. Do you think that like one of my theories of why podcasts, let's say it's still the Wild West, and it hasn't, we talked about the algorithms and the platforms and stuff. I think that's huge. I wonder, because it's largely not visual. Now we know you can go to YouTube then and watch the podcast, so it is visual. But do you think that that's a part of it? And do you think to help make a podcast more popular, that podcasters do need to do those things like what we started to do now, which is post the clips of the podcast and tease people with the visuals?
I think so. So podcast still the piece that dominates is the audio side to it.
Mhm.
And on all the podcast platforms, like that's where the majority of listeners are going to go.
Mhm.
However, seeing a clip that has video obviously is going to be more engaging than just audio.
Right.
And then likewise, some people like to watch the show, so to speak.
Right.
So they're still going to go onto YouTube, for instance, and watch
Right.
the video portion to that. So it's
Right.
important to have that
Yeah.
because once you get somebody hooked on watching,
Right.
all of a sudden, let's say that they're heading to their job or they're,
Right.
going to work out and they want to listen to the show but not have the visual,
Right.
then you have that avenue as well. So it opens up the ability to have more. But again, and I'll kind of stop it there because still the audio side,
Yeah.
it's one of the senses, like you're removing the visual sense.
Yes.
So
Right.
you're hearing the voice better. You're
Mhm.
hearing, the tone of the voice and everything. And it really is addicting. I mean, shoot. Jordan, who we've hired, she is by far the person that has listened to the most amount of podcasts that I've ever known in my life. And she is
Really?
our new podcast account manager.
She's amazing. I will give a shout
And
out
she's
to
got
Jordan.
great hair.
She's got
So-
great hair. She's got great everything. And people know I'm pretty insufferable when it comes to people who are challenged and slow. But she's amazing. Now, that kind of fascinates me when you say she's listened to so many
She has
of every kind, like of every kind, or is it
every
just-
kind, but she had like 8 in her repertoire before she started to where she listened to them almost on a daily basis.
Really?
And so it's like when I say that she loves the audio side to
Yeah.
it. So she's not a big person that's going to watch a podcast. She's a
Interesting.
listener. And we've talked about it to where it's like, yeah, that is something to where, there's a sense that you're removing from there. And a lot of people just enjoy the audio side to it versus, having the visual.
That's interesting because so many times I'll think like I love to read and I do have books on tape because sometimes like if I'm putting my makeup on, I like to have something educational going, but I can't obviously be reading a book and putting my makeup on. But I can do it with let's say Audible. And it's interesting because I always think like, oh, it'd be just so nice if I could just be watching this while I'm also like on a screen. But I think you're right. I've become more and more interested in not having the distraction of something because I think it's like if there is the visual, you will watch it, right? You're just
Yeah.
distracted and you do pay attention on a different level. And yeah, I think of the days like when it must have just been radio before it was TV and you kind of everybody gathers around just, so to listen to the radio. And then all of a sudden when it's TV, it was like, it was the radio, but we still have the radio.
Yeah.
It serves its purpose. Now, okay, without outing Jordan, what were like the 8 kinds of podcasts she was listening to?
So, I mean, all the way from Call Her Daddy down to, like,
Wow.
business podcasts to where, like,
Really?
she had a plethora of different ones that she's listened to, and it's funny, I'll have to get the list from her as to, like, which ones are on the repertoire right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
but, like, we've had conversations about Call Her Daddy. She's like, "Matt, you referenced that in a meeting, like, do you listen?" I'm like, "I follow the podcast industry.
Right.
I know, like, I'll listen to a show or 2 here and there to get a feel for different shows, the way that they're
Sure.
structured,
Sure.
what makes them good." So I'm studying podcasts. I'm not,
Ah,
like,
interesting.
I don't think there's a single podcast that I actively listen to, like, ongoing. It's
Yeah.
more so I am a student of the industry
Yeah.
and of good content, of trying to figure out, "Hey, what's the best way that we can structure shows? What's the best way to get the best quality out of
Interesting.
them?" And so forth. So, yeah, it's definitely been, for me, more of a learning and always trying to learn what the latest and greatest is within podcasting more so than, trying to find a show and listen to it ongoing.
Yeah. So you mentioned Call Her Daddy. I mean, who doesn't know Call Her Daddy? God bless. How long has that girl been doing a podcast? It feels like it hasn't even been that long.
She
And
got the launch from Barstool. I'll tell you what,
right,
they
I
put a girl on
forgot.
Barstool and all of a sudden, and she had a
Right.
partner originally, and then they
Right.
broke up. They had a bad
Oh, they
breakup.
did. That makes me feel better.
Yep.
Sorry. I don't mean it to have it feel better, but at least, like, I always think I want to have invented all the good ideas in the world. And okay, that's so at least she has had some bumps in the road. Okay. That's right. I forgot about Barstool. So that's a pretty big platform.
Yeah.
Okay.
And believe it or not, like that was their largest show they've ever had. But you listen to Dave Portnoy and he's like, she knew how to do everything. Like she knew how to create clips that were like engaging, hooked people. So she was kind
Really?
of her own producer in a lot of ways.
But she was on the podcast, but she knew all the other back
Yeah.
elements.
Well, then she pitched it to apparently Dave over, hey, I know how to do all of this stuff. Give me
Yeah.
a show.
How long has she been doing it? We don't know. I'm
At least
curious.
5 years now.
Call Her Daddy has been around for 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, she left Barstool going back, what, 2 years ago now? And she was with
Wow.
she had a Barstool contract for a couple of years. So I
Wow.
think it's probably been around that, I would imagine.
How many does she put out? Does she do one every day?
No, I think it's weekly.
God, it feels like it's more than weekly, but
I
okay, yeah.
know.
I mean, you're probably I'm sure you're probably right. It just feels like she's had some amazing guests lately.
Well,
And,
then you get into the celebrity world, right?
oh,
To
yeah.
where now all of a sudden it's in you're spilling the tea.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's its own interesting slippery slope, right? Because when you get a lot of information, like I have a lot of information, I would love to dish about so much of it. But then guess what? My information would dry up, that's a whole, yeah, how much you decide to divulge. Why do you think that podcast is so popular?
It's a good question because when I broke it down, I saw a podcast that they talked about the taboo, right? And they got people that you normally wouldn't expect to
Mhm.
talk about those types of topics
Mhm.
openly.
Mhm.
And I think that has a lot to do with the host too, right? That,
Mhm.
getting people to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And Adam's always said this about me, and I guess it is kind of true,
Yeah.
is that people just open up to me.
Yeah, they do. I could see why. We got
And
that good voice.
it's weird, but, like, all of a sudden, like, I've got people talking about things that they've never talked about on podcasts before, and it's like, wow, like, I can't believe that he said that. Like, it
Right.
used to
Right.
be that I would drink a glass of whiskey on the show, and when I would do some interviews, they
Yeah.
would join in and
Right.
share and have some
Right.
whiskey with me. Now I
Right.
don't, but it's like, man, early on, people just opened up, and I always thought it was the whiskey, but no, like, it's just something that is there's something about a host that gets people to talk,
Yeah.
get them to open up and feel comfortable,
It's
right?
like, here,
Sharing
kitty,
that stuff.
kitty, here, kitty, kitty. And
Exactly.
it is interesting. Do you think you can be a small podcast host and get high profile guests? Or do you think that high profile guests are kind of only going to the big ones?
No, if you have a good mission behind you and you've
Mhm.
got a good pitch to them,
Yeah.
I feel like celebrities will come on. I mean, we've had shoot, I've had celebrities come on to my podcast. And granted, we didn't have the numbers early on that would
Yeah.
like dictate that, but it's more so if you've got the right niche, you've got the right conversations happening,
Mhm.
and then a lot of it's obviously you as the host,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
get them to buy into
Right.
what you're doing on the show.
Right.
And certainly people get interested around that. And a lot of times it doesn't, like, that's the one thing that it drives me nuts. And I almost always, by the way, will shoo anybody that asks, "Hey, what are the numbers?"
Yeah, I know.
Because early on,
You've shooed me many times, and I
I
keep asking,
literally
but
I would be like, "What does like this show's gonna grow. This is gonna be evergreen content that's gonna be out there that people can go back and listen to
Mhm.
once the show's big." Now that my show is big,
Yeah.
it's like anybody that asks that, you're already disqualified.
Well, you
Like,
must be an idiot. I mean, you must be living in a closet. Okay, keep going. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So I mean,
right?
that's the one thing that drives me nuts. It's like,
Yeah.
come on as a guest to a show that you're interested in being a guest on the show,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether they have big numbers or not. Because again, you never know when it's going to blow up,
Right.
and when it does, you're going to have an episode on.
Yeah. It's almost like anything in business, that you buy into the founder and who's behind it and all that stuff. It's kind of like, listen, you buy into the host and who has got what they have right this minute, because the second, as you say, it gets big, everybody goes back to listen to
Yeah.
every single, it's like a dead singer who's had a scandal, and then all of a sudden, all the music, they're back at the top, whatever, because you go back and listen and buy every single thing they've ever done.
One of the shows that comes to mind is Suits. Suits was
Mm,
not that big back
right.
when it was out, and then all of a sudden it goes on Netflix and people start binging it, and it
Oh
became
yeah.
super popular 10 years later. It's
Oh
like,
yes.
yeah, those things happen. And so that's why, to me, being in media,
Yeah.
like I've had people, some of our hosts that I
Yeah.
work with are just like, "Hey, what should I say?" They're asking for numbers of this and that. And I'm like, don't even respond. It's absolutely pointless to respond to any of them, even if you have big numbers. Like,
Right.
why don't you ask them, how many numbers does it take for you to come onto my show?
Right.
That's how
Right.
many I've got.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And what do you think are the ways, like, let's go back to the business aspect of things. What do you think are the ways to leverage a podcast? Because I like to think that I'm really good at leveraging things. And I will tell you, little more than 6 months in now, I've even started thinking of more and more and more. I mean, between the content in the podcast and then, taping it so that you have the visual element too. But on top of that, and then just the transcripts that you can get, et cetera. I mean, it's just endless. So what would you say?
Yeah, I mean,
How
so
do you think you can leverage it?
you can leverage it in so many ways. I mean, that's where, do you know Mission Matters was built off of the podcast, to where when Adam started doing the podcast, he started turning people that came onto the show into clients.
Wow.
And so you can use it from a business development standpoint. Like, you can bring on people that you want to sell to.
Yeah.
You can also build it more so around the audience, to where, if it is something, and this is something you and I have talked about, to where it's like, bring them into more of your personal life, to where
Right.
they're going to
Right.
buy more into you once
Right.
they get to know you, even beyond doing interviews and so
Right.
forth.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I'm doing right now. Like, so I've put together a game plan for myself that is actually very similar to what you're working on around, my comeback journey, in a way, to where my golf game had gotten so bad as a former professional golfer.
I love
And
it.
all of a sudden it's like, okay, how do I go from, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was a plus handicap.
Right.
Now all of a
Right.
sudden I'm a 7 handicap. It's gotten
Yeah.
even worse,
Yeah.
to where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, how do I get back to a level and show people this journey
Yeah.
of, okay, let's go through a full transformation. Let's
Right.
show the dad who has a full-time job, or just the person who's working all the time.
Right.
Let's show them, okay, with a little bit of dedication and hard work, how can you all of a sudden get back to doing something that you love and want to be great at and have to put the time into? So I'm documenting from, 5 a.m. wake ups to utilizing resources that are right there in front of you. Like, indoor golf centers and so forth, utilizing health facilities. So, like, I'm getting together with Stark Health and going through their
That's
protocols and program in order to start getting healthy, because it's like, man, I want to be healthy. I want to
right.
look better.
Right.
I don't want to be the guy who's sitting in a chair all the time and all of
Right.
a sudden got a
We've
belly
got
and
to
it's
start
like,
doing, we've got to start do the walking podcast where you're like, like we're walking and we're on the treadmill. Like the more successful the business ends up getting. Oh my God.
exactly. And
I mean,
then,
the more
of
successful
course,
the podcast ends up getting. So we're not sitting.
yeah, and then you got the day-to-day work aspect too, right? We're
Right.
doing meetings, I'm literally doing production calls constantly, setting up and creating new podcasts. So all of that's going to get documented now.
Right.
And it's going to be that journey coming back. And granted, golf is kind of the ethos behind it in a way, but that's
Sure.
just the passion side to it, to where it's like, no, this is going to show people how you can transform your life. And
Yeah.
that content that will go out will be driven on social media. It'll
Yeah.
go up onto YouTube, and hopefully, in a way, it all interacts with the podcast itself, to where then you've got the example for people and people can join into that story and then buy into you even more. So, again,
Yeah.
it's all about putting yourself out there and being as authentic and honest as you can about everything. And that's where, one of my taglines behind this whole thing is, it's
Yeah.
not a perfect journey. It's a messy, it's honest. Like, you're going to see some of that raw stuff that goes on. Like, it's not going to be like an Ashton Hall
No.
where it's like, man, he looks perfect, right?
Right.
It's like he's got a killer body. He's drinking the
Oh
the
God.
Saratoga Springs water.
Right.
He's got
Right.
his Rolex on. He's got his Louis Vuitton luggage that he brings to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, everything's brand new and perfect. It's like, that's not realistic. So this is going to be a little bit more authentic, and I think along your lines as well, that's what people are going to buy into.
He is kind of perfect. So he can sort of get away with a lot of that, right? And it wouldn't take much for people to realize, yeah, the girl's without makeup and half the time. So I get it. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. What would you say to people who are thinking about starting a podcast?
You got to be crazy. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
People
Don't do it.
wanting to
Stay
start
out
a
of the space. No,
podcast,
I'm just kidding.
it is very difficult. Like, everybody could start a podcast themselves,
Yeah.
but I will say now that after going through that journey of learning how to do everything,
Yeah.
and then running obviously an agency on top of that, I
Yeah.
will say first and foremost, get a company, because
Yeah.
it's going to
Sure.
make it more pleasurable, to where you can just go in, record, and
Yeah.
then they
I would
take care
agree.
of the rest. That's what I would highly recommend, because
Yeah.
everything else takes the fun out of it. And
Yeah.
I
You're totally right.
used to say, what we do within our podcast
Mhm.
agency, we literally allow you to do the fun part of podcasting, and we
Yeah.
take care of all the stuff you don't want to do.
Right.
So that would be
Right.
my one recommendation. And then stay consistent. I can't say it enough. In this
Mhm.
book that I wrote with Mission Matters, it literally, like, that is the theme. And I feel like it's become the theme of my life, to where, like, or in my early days, I wasn't always consistent. And I'd
Right.
always wonder, why am I not more successful?
Right.
And then I found being consistent.
Yeah.
And from there, everything has just taken off, from a success standpoint to quality of life, things along those lines. To just be consistent, show up every day, be that same person every single day, even though, we all have emotions, we all have feelings,
Yeah.
everything. Like, you're not going to be perfect every single day, and that's okay. But
Right.
show up. And if you show up, guess what? Things are going to happen for you.
Well, it's like the simplest advice, but boy, is it the hardest to implement as far as
It
I'm
is.
concerned. It's very straightforward, but not always easy to do. Well, I cannot thank you enough, Matt. Now tell us, how can our listeners find you? How can they contact you? How can they listen to your podcast? Give us all the dirt.
Well, so here's the thing. The podcast is Pull Hook Golf. So PullhookGolf. You can find us on all the social media platforms under Pull Hook Golf. We're on wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there. And then YouTube is also Pull Hook Golf. The only one that has an additional moniker to it is TikTok. Some kid took Pull Hook Golf when we first started and wouldn't sell it to me. So I'm like, you have 0 followers. And then it turned into, okay, now our TikTok is Pull Hook Golf Podcast. So
Okay.
that's the only one that's different. And then, of course, anything with Mission Matters, you can go to missionmatters.com. And I almost felt like I was about to go through a promo where I'm
Right.
like,
Well,
you can utilize the promo code Pull
you
Hook
can,
Golf
and
20 at
yeah,
checkout
yeah.
for
Okay.
20%.
Oh, I love that. I think I need a promo code at checkout. We can talk about that on another call. I love it. All right, Matt, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And everybody, thank you for listening, because this is why we do what we do. So we are wrapping another episode of Every Day is a Train Wreck. This is your host, Marley Major. And what a fun day. We've done a bunch of these today, and it's all been good. If you haven't already, please comment. Please make sure you subscribe, tell a friend, rate 5 stars if you're so inclined. And we will see you next time. Matt, thanks again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.